Okay, so I am finally getting to the final powder video of the series. I have 3 that I have made. You know, we've got the loose powders, we've got powder foundations, and then this one is going to be specialty powders and compact powders. They're ones that you really want to have in your collection. They have a space on my desk. I use them every day, but they are for very, very specific uses. And they are not your general all over face kind of powder usually. I still think that they really need to be gone over because sometimes you need a little bit of highlighting, you need a little bit of red coverage, you need something that's going to work well with acne, you need something that's not going to crease underneath your eyes. So there's definitely specialty kind of uses that are not the same as your overall powder that is going to be your everyday powder. Enough talking, let's go ahead and get into all the specialty powders, all their uses, and the ones that I think are worth getting, and maybe the ones that you were curious about that are probably worth skipping. Okay, let's get into it. We're actually going to start with the compact powders just because it was something I was actually going to make a whole video about, and then I changed my mind because after trying all of them on, I realized that most of them, aside from my kosas powder, the purpose of that compact powder is so that you can take it with you, and a lot of them really kind of perform the same. So I'm actually going to sort of speed through these. I tried all of my different ones on. I will go ahead and let you know what I think of each one, and then you can pick which one fits your budget if you think it looks good or if you want to skip them. So let's get into the compact powders and then we'll move on to all of the other specialty powders. Okay, let's get started with a couple of my favorites. I think these actually are good enough to really use just on their own and not just for touch-ups. Okay, so both of these are MAC powders. They've always done powder really well. This first one has a little bit of illuminance to it. It is very creamy, it's buildable. It is not so heavy that it can be a powder foundation. They have one of those, but that's not what we're doing here. And the color actually works really well on me. This looks really, really beautiful. And you can see that little bit of shine on my finger. Okay, so this is the MAC Blot Powder in the lightest color, and this one has a little more coverage, a little more creamy, and not so much of the like shine, although there is just a little bit of that. This one has a very natural finish. This one, I think if I had to pick the two, I know it's a hard choice. They both look really good. I have both of them on my face here in real light, and you can just see how beautiful it looks with that little bit of radiance. Love these. Okay, so this one's definitely got a little more coverage. This is the Bare Minerals Mineral Veil Sheer Fair. This is not like their powder foundation. This is an actual, you know, like their mineral veil. This one is a little bit shiny, not very much. Any of their mineral formulas tend to have just a little bit of luminance in it, but it has a little more coverage, as you can see on my face. This color is pretty good, maybe a little light, a little yellow, but not too bad. Definitely workable, especially if you just use a brush. Little bit drier in my little areas. Let's move on to NARS. I love this one if you want like a really creamy sort of heavy coverage, very velvety one. They have all different colors. The one I have is probably just a little bit too light for me, but the next one up was probably a little too dark. You know, if you're going for a little bit lighter of a look, this is great, but I love the velvety nature of this one. Okay, now this one is very, very popular. It's the Charlotte Tilbury. The lightest color that she has for me is a little too dark, as you can see. Now, maybe during the summer this is okay, but overall, when this first came out, I liked that it seemed to have a little bit of body to it, but I just think there's a lot better powders out there now. It really is dry. It sits in my little wrinkles and it just doesn't look that good. And also the color was too dark. So here is what they came out with a couple years ago, which is their brightening powder. It's white, so I thought, okay, well, maybe this will work better. Well, it does have a little bit of a sheen to it. You can see it's a little bit pearly and it is super white. So it doesn't really solve the problem. It's too white. It's still a little bit drying. It's okay under the eyes, not great. I know a lot of people love both of these Charlotte Tilbury's under the eyes, not for me. Okay, so this one I just got off of Amazon. This is the same Perfect Pore Pink Compact. This one you have to be careful with. It is beautiful if you use their puff and you use one layer of it. It has a lot of coverage, as you can see. It's very, very velvety. Don't try to do more than one layer of this. It just cakes up too much. So I think it's really pretty. It's good for oily skin. Tower 28. Now, this one I am torn on. This is supposedly their pink one. That's not really that pink. This is a good powder. It's not a great powder. I feel like there was a lot of hype around it. It's a little bit patchy. It's a little bit dry. It kind of depends on the day as to how much I really like this one or not. I definitely don't reach for this on the regular. It's not my go-to. I think it does look better if you go light with it with a brush. Okay, this is one sizes turn up the base. And this, like a lot of Patrick Starr's stuff, is a little heavy for me. I don't think it's really made for my skin type. I let my daughter use it for a while, and I think it was even a little too heavy for her sort of teenage skin. It's beautiful, but everything is so high coverage, it's probably not my first choice. Okay, NYX. So I actually really like this HD finishing powder. It's really velvety. It's really actually fairly high coverage for a translucent. My one issue with it is it's a little bit on the white side, but if I do a lot of things to adjust it, like, you know, bronzers, blush, I still really like this one. I think there are a few better ones out there, but not a whole lot better. Okay, here are my favorites. These are my ultimate favorites. This is the Kosas Cloud Set ones. And the pink one is called Candy and the yellow one is called Airy. I'm really sort of in between the two, so sometimes I will mix them. A lot of times I just use the Candy one. And I love how velvety soft this is, especially when I'm having a dry skin day. Now, even though this one, it does work for me, this yellowish one, it's their lightest one, I don't tend to wear it on its own because you can kind of see with how much powder I use, you can see that yellowish on my face, and I don't prefer that. So I really haven't used that one that much, whereas the pink one is almost gone. Okay, now if you are looking for drugstore, I think that these are probably my number one recommendation. This is one of those just right powders. I have no complaints about this at all, other than maybe if you were to load too much of this up, it is a little heavy. It is a perfect mix of just a little bit of luminance, I mean the tiniest amount, and a nice velvety matte. I would say either 105 or 100 translucent, they're both good, honestly. Probably the translucent one, but it's really hard for me to choose. I think they're both really good. I just think that the 105 has a little more coverage and the 100 is a little too white. So again, I end up mixing them. I really can't tell you which one would be right for you. You'd have to decide. Okay, this one's actually a little on the dry side. A lot of these L'Oreal ones are very, very popular. I like this one if you use it very lightly. I do like that they have a lot of different ones to choose from as far as colors, so L'Oreal's really good with that. But this one tends to wear a little bit dry on me. I certainly don't like to overload my skin with it. Like when I use a puff, as you can see, I'm very white and it's a little too much and it does catch in my texture. So if you have older skin, I would go really light with this one or choose a different one. Okay, so CoverGirl. They were the kind of classics for years, and I know like Tati loves these. I can't really wear these anymore. I have so many of them because I used to wear them all the time when I had really oily skin. Now they're very heavy and cakey and drying on me. This Radiance one does have a little bit of luminance, but the other ones really kind of don't. So unfortunately the Radiance one, which does work a little bit better, is a little bit too dark for me, and that is their lightest color. This one's a better color, a little yellow, but you know, it's also drying, cakey, a little bit heavy. So I would say if you are older like me and you have dry skin, I would just stay away from the CoverGirl line unless you can pull off that slightly darker Radiance color. That one's actually pretty decent. I don't know. I think that the Maybelline Fit Me ones are just better. Here's their Clean Fresh line. You know, I kind of was like, well, maybe their lines will be different. Kind of the same thing. This one has a little bit of color. The color is actually decent. A little bit more coverage. It's not bad, but as you can see, it's fairly thick, a little bit chalky, and if you have texture and dry skin, it definitely is going to get in that. And then their translucent is just straight up white. Again, if you go really light with any of these ones that are white, it's not going to be so bad, but if you really want to put a nice layer of it on with a puff, you are going to look like a snowman. I mean, it's white. There's just no getting around it. It's not quote unquote translucent at that point. And this one, it shows that it has a tiny bit of radiance. I don't see it on my face. What I do feel is very, very dry. So let's move on. Okay, so there are a lot of under eye powders, or ones that say that they are under eye powders. I think I have tried almost all of them. Very, very few, I think, at least for me, who has, you know, very like creasy under eyes. They tend to be dry even though I moisturize them. You know, I'm almost 50. That's where you show a lot of age. So even with Botox and all the things that I do, there is some crinkly, creasy, crepey skin under here. I have to say, I've only found one under eye powder still that is my holy grail. It is the one that works, and it is the Pat McGrath Labs one. It is made for under eyes. You can use it everywhere. I have been using the very, very slightly pink one, but the white one is really good as well. I have already used that one mostly. They last you quite a while. I think it's about $32 for these. Glam Girl Gabby, she recommended the Chanel one that I have. This one's fine. It's not as good as this. This one's very, very thin, and so it's not too crepey. It's a really good powder, but you know, it's pretty expensive. It's much more expensive, but you get a huge amount, right? This for $32 lasts me a good year to year and a half. And it has just a little more body to it. It comes in different colors. If you're a darker tone, they have something for you. This is the one that sort of does both a good job of setting and sort of just like giving you just a little bit of color, because some of us have really dark under eyes. I've already put 2 layers of stuff underneath here trying to get this a little less dark. It gives you a little bit of color coverage, and it just sort of smooths this whole area out. Nothing comes close to this, nothing beats it. Now every once in a while this gets a little too light for me depending on what else I have going, like I'll do my cheeks or whatever. Another specialty powder that I do like to use is the e.l.f. I'll put it up on the side because I can't remember exactly what it's called, and I can't read this because it's tiny, but this is their like pink, I think it's one of their HD powders, and it has a little bit of a shimmer in it, just the tiniest bit. It's a really fairly refined one, but it's a little warmer. It says it's pink. It is not. It's peach. They don't have a true pink one, but this is a very fine, very nice one. I love this to just sort of blur and marry the rest of this in. So this is one that I always keep around to keep from being too raccoony under here, because usually by the time I have done cheeks and maybe a little bit of bronzer or something like that, you end up with sort of a very white line to the other colors, right? And so this is what I use to very, very softly, and you can see how that just sort of blurs everything out. It just marries the colors together a lot better, so you don't have a full-on raccoon eye. So that's what I always use this for. Sometimes I'll use it like, you know, all the way from here up just for a little more color, depends on what I'm doing. But this is another one of those specialty powders that is actually quite cheap, that is really, really good. Now another one that I'm finding has a similar use, here let me set this other eye with the Pat McGrath, is the new Kosas pink powder, the loose powder. This one has shimmer in it. It's actually quite beautiful, but as you can see, it is not a light pink. It's actually a fairly dark pink. And if you don't want your face to be this color, you have to go really light with it. But it is very similar, although I don't know why you would spend the extra money, to the e.l.f. It is more pink, perhaps. And it does give you, you can see, I think, I can see it. It's beautiful. It's very smoothing. They did a great job with it. I wish they had some more colors, like skin tone colors. If you do it lightly, it just gives you a little tiny bit of sheen, and it does do that same blurring thing. So if you were interested in this Kosas pink powder, that's really what it does best. I have tried using it on my whole face, and it's a bit shimmery. Don't quite notice it at first. It's also a bit pink, but by the time I put as much powder as I like to put on my face, you really see it. That's not the look I'm going for. Usually when I'm powdering, I don't really want to look glowy afterwards. Otherwise, I would just use the new Givenchy. That's kind of my issue with the new Givenchy. It's not bad. It's actually really, really pretty, but it's not mattifying and making my skin look velvet like I want. So just different uses. Okay, so that's those 3 different powders, and that's really kind of my summation of what you should and could use under your eyes that I think works the best. And I do have very challenging under eyes. Now, if you have dry skin, I do get this question a lot. What is the best powder for dry skin? Well, in general, finishing powders, which we'll go over, just very, very light powders that are just for doing a little bit of pore blurring are going to be the best. But you have dry skin, but you have discoloration, and you want something with more coverage. I cannot recommend these highly enough. The Kosas Cloud Set Powder, I have Candy, and this one is Airy. So basically the 2 lightest ones. I wish this was a little pinkier and not so sort of yellow peach, but it still works for me. I can still wear this. These are not going to keep you from being oily if you are super oily, but if you're very dry, these actually do work okay under the eye. Don't pile it up too much. It does have a lot of body to it. It's very soft and it's very hydrating. You can really get away with a lot of this. It's not quite as high coverage as, say, a powder foundation, but it's getting there. Like, if this is one of my favorite, obviously, powders. I use this all the time. When my Givenchy was no longer a thing, this is what took its place for me for a long time. Now I really like the Makeup by Mario one. I think it's a little bit closer, but I still really like this because I vacillate between very dry days because I'm trying a new retinoid right now, and it's making for some rough skin days at times, even though I'm trying to be careful with it. I'm about ready to give up on it. These are good for when you have that rough skin and you don't want it to catch and look extra dry. They sit on top of the skin and smooth it out and just put a nice velvety blur on you, and I love these. These are one of my top recommendations for both a compact powder and a really good dry skin powder. Even if you don't have dry skin, this is a beautiful powder. It's just not going to control your oil for quite as long because it is more hydrating. These are the best. I need to get another one of these. Okay, now pink powder. Pink powder has become ubiquitous. It is everywhere, it is popular, and I'm actually really glad for it because it actually works usually really well for very fair, cool toned skin. The one problem I run into with pink powders is that a lot of times they're too pink, and then if you are as pale as me, they are blush. There are very few where they get that very light milky pink just right so that I can really use them. I'm going to show you some pretty good, decent pink powders, but most of them are a little too pink for me. They probably, if you're a little bit darker than me, they probably work great for you. My absolute favorite pink powder, the Kosas Cloud Set Pink. This candy is such a nice, light, Pepto-Bismol pink that it's something that I can wear pretty much on its own. If I have a really wet foundation that I'm putting this over and it is really light, then sometimes this can appear too pink. But for the most part, I've done a lot of foundation tests wearing just this as a way of bringing up a foundation that is just a little too dark or a little too brown. This is my great, like, even everything out, fix it, and make it look really close to sort of what the finish I used to get with the Givenchy. So this, for me, is the queen of pink powders. If you're looking for a pink powder, they are great for brightening. They make you look, you know, a little more lively, creamy, especially if you are if you've overdone your very, very white makeup. I do this all the time. They help add a little bit of life back for me. So some other good ones, I did already talk about this previously. This is the new Kosas pink one. This one is a little bit of more of like a highlighting one. It is a little too dark to wear over my whole face, but it's close. I almost can. The bigger thing is that it's got a little bit of highlighting in it. It's very, very pretty. If you are just a little bit less pale than me, I think it might actually work for you as a pink powder. I do use it under here all the time for me, especially if I want something that has a little bit of highlight in it. The new Juvia's Place powders, these are actually really nice. So they have cotton candy. This one is pretty light. I actually really like these. They're very smooth. They are a little bit drying, so they haven't been my absolute go-to since my skin has been a little rough, a little dry. But if you are very, very oily and you don't have just a ton of like sort of like dry texture areas, I think you would absolutely love these. I also got the coconut flakes one. This one, oops, I would say is just a little too, it's like I mixed the two. This one is just the tiniest bit too yellowish brown for me, but I mean like almost. If I was wearing a foundation that was a little too pink, I think I could use it to correct it. It has color. It's not a super heavy powder. It's actually quite light and silky, but it does impart some color, just not full color. So they actually have a white one. I didn't get that one because I already spent too much of my budget, but I think that one would work as well, just fine. And then let's see, here's another one that I got. This is the new Wet n Wild one. Skip this one. I was so excited for this. This one is not bad. It's not as good as the Photo Focus one, even the, you know, like the old one. This is supposed to be Photo Focus, but it's a little bit different. It's just not quite as good. It is like if you are just going back and needing to do a little bit of cleanup, I actually do like it for that. I did not enjoy the finish on this when I used it as my main first like layer. It's a little too pink and it's a little too drying. It's not, I don't know, it just didn't sit quite right. Not like the old Photo Focus did, where that one was a little more velvety. This one is not, unfortunately. So if you were thinking about that, I'm not going to recommend it. I was so excited for it, so kind of disappointed about that. This one's really good too. This is the Catrice Bright and Blur. This one is a darker pink. It is a nice one. Again, pretty silky. Has a little, it smells so good. It smells like candy. It has just a little bit of a beautiful sort of shine to it. I mean, just whenever I say that these have like a little bit of a luminosity to them, it's not like there is sparkles in there. It's not like they're super shiny. They're not like a highlighter. There's just this diffuse, a little bit of glow. Is beautiful. Some people are going to really, really want that and like that. They love that finish. For me, I am just textured enough and I am just oily enough that I like it. I like that finish here, but not on the rest of my face. So these are specialty powders. I think this is a great option if you don't want to spend the money on some of the more expensive ones like the Kosas. This would be a pretty good dupe for the new Kosas one for a lot cheaper because it's Catrice. So, and this one's been around for a while. And if you like the smell of just like, it just has a sweet sort of candy smell. It's actually really, really nice. So those are some of my favorite pink powders. This one is the queen of pink powders. I've tried a few other ones. Huda has one. Those are just too heavy, too pink. None of those were really worth mentioning, I don't think. So these are the ones that I actually think are, either, well, not the Wet n Wild. I just kind of wanted to warn you guys about the Wet n Wild because it is new, and I'm sure a lot of you who had heard about it might be excited to go try it. No, but the Kosas candy, that one, that's the best if you ask me. Okay, now this is a special kind of powder. Since we are doing special powders here, this is something, it's actually, I have a very old one of it. It has lasted me forever, but there is sulfur in here, so it really kind of keeps it. It has always worked really well for me. It is called the Mario Badescu Special Healing Powder. Now they have a new one that I want to try. It's called the Blemish Repairing Powder. It looks exactly the same, but the use of this is specifically, it's a little bit green. It's meant to go over active acne. So I actually think this is one of those tools that not a lot of people know about, but works so well. Now, if you are not like somebody who has like really bad acne or even like, kind of regular acne, you're not going to be quite as familiar with what the use of this would be. What this is best at, and again, I'm sorry this is going to be a little bit gross if you're not used to having basically really bad acne. Look, I had cystic acne for a very long time. I've been on and off Accutane a couple times now. When you have something that has been popped and it is basically still kind of oozing, weeping, it's still wet and it won't dry up without becoming very crusty, but you got to cover stuff up and you got to go, and you can't have this like basically open wound on your face. This is really, really good at, put it on a clean little brush and you dab it right into those areas until, I am so sorry, this sounds disgusting, but until the oozing stops basically, and it will, in an antibacterial way, help both minimize the redness because of the green, but also put in sort of an antibacterial sulfur powder in there that helps not cauterize the wound, but get the wound to start to seal up and dry so that you can actually put some sort of cover up over it or maybe a powder foundation. The problem with a lot of other ones is you can load powders like onto one of those owies, but it will just keep sort of like clear fluid will keep coming out. Again, if this is too gross, please skip over. For those of you who have to deal with this, then this is hopefully helpful. If you use this, it does a better, more antibacterial job of actually getting that wound to sort of seal itself up in a way that is going to help it heal and not continue to spread or clog the pore or spread the bacteria, right? So this is not going to be for everybody, but since we're doing specialty powders, this is one of my specialty sort of items that I keep around for when I have flare-ups. I still have flare-ups. I just did Accutane again. It's been much better, but my hormones are all over the place. They're crazy through perimenopause, and it's about to be menopause because I'm going in for surgery here in about a month, and we're going to finally just remove everything because of the endometriosis, including my ovaries. So I will be in menopause. Hopefully I won't have to deal with acne past that point. But up until this point, I have had to deal with it because my hormones do this, and they've done it my whole life. I started getting acne when I was about 10, and it has not left me alone except for when I'm on Accutane or my hormones are really low and steady. So I really had need of this, and it's one of those little tools that I think a lot of people who have the same struggles as me would really appreciate knowing about. It's a really nice little thing to have just sort of in the corner. It's one of your little tools that if you're going through it, you don't have to feel too bad about packing this on top of one of those and letting it sort of dry down, seal, and then you can work over it so that you can cover up whatever you've got going. So some people just use this over their whole face. I never ended up using it that way. It is a little bit green. It's sort of minty green. Well, nah, it's more olivey green. That does a great job like around if you just want to use it, like if you're like me and you have red areas, you can just use it on those areas to do a little bit of you know, correcting if you want to go really low and you don't want a bunch of cover up or whatever. You can have a green powder kind of help you out. It's not so green that you're like, you have something green on your face. Some of the color correctors are like that. That's a little weird looking, and you really, when you use this, you really need to put a full face of makeup on top of it. This is not quite that green, but it does help take the redness down, which really helps a lot. Okay, well, this one, I noticed it's like viral again. This was viral a while ago, and then all of a sudden I'm seeing it on Instagram again. It's actually what got me to buy it. I was like, oh yeah, I forgot about that one. Everybody says it's so good. This is the M Cosmetics setting powder, and this is Portrait Mode Refining Setting Powder. They only have one color. I was a little worried because the color was just, I mean, I know that doesn't look dark, but for me, when I see a powder, that can sometimes be a little too dark for me. This one is not. I don't know what's in this that makes it so special, but it is, like, the hype is real. This is my new favorite final powder that I would use to make myself look absolutely, absolutely silky. It's kind of expensive. You have to order it. That's the only thing I don't like. But see, I've gotten a little oily hair. I'm gonna use a little. This thing is like a blur tool. They want you to use this very thin little puff that comes with it. I would use it because it works really well at putting down just the right amount of blurring. It is absolutely beautiful. It really does just, there goes the oil, there goes your pores. Now, if you're still fairly oily, like I'm medium oily, like I still break through on oils. It's not going to keep you for a terribly long time, but if you need it as just a touch-up or the finals, what I like to use it as my final before I go out. This is my final little blur for anything that has kind of broken through. The hype is real. This is really, really good. I do wonder what's in this. I mean, the packaging is gorgeous too. Everybody's already talked about that because it's true. It's really nice. This is worth the money. I absolutely love it. Now, if you're like, that's nice, but that's like 38 bucks plus shipping. That's really expensive for just like a little compact. I do have something that is more like $6-7. I think it's $6 that I found on Amazon. Speaking of specialty powders, this is just one of those little, they have a bunch of different colors. And I thought, you know, it's kind of gimmicky, but I'll give it a try. It has this like sponge sort of applicator. I thought I was going to use this under my eyes. It didn't really work under my eyes, but the powder with this applicator, this is going in my purse because, especially for the price, look at that. It does a fantastic job of blurring. It does, you kind of get a little puff of you know, the powder when you do that. But this is one of those things I did not expect much just because it was $6 and it was on Amazon. I was like, well, whatever. I love using this thing. You have to be careful, like if you use too much of it, it will get to a point where it starts to not look as good, but especially, and you have to use the little puff that comes with it. You can dip into it. I didn't find that the powder was quite as good. It's the puff and the powder together. I don't know, this does a pretty darn good job, and it's cute. It's got a little mirror. This is just perfect for like bringing with you if you want a blurring, lightweight little powder just for touch-ups. So as an alternative that is much cheaper, it's not quite as good as this one. This one's a little silkier feeling, but I mean, it's really close. I mean, you can see they both did a really good job. And yeah, I would recommend both of them, honestly. Just what's in your budget. If you can swing this one, I think it's really, really good though. All right, let's move on. Since we're talking about finishing powders as one of our specialty powders, this is one that Nikki LaRose actually recommended, and I love this. Whenever my pores look rough and I just cannot get it blurred out or smoothed out, like everything else I've tried is not working, this is the Makeup Forever Ultra HD. They have a lot of different powders. This is their Ultra HD powder. It's the one with the pokey little top, and it's totally translucent, and it is whisper, like it's not even there. It's just like, it's just barely there. This will take care of any kind of issue that you have at the end. It is like an absolute blurring tool. It is one of my favorites. I have some of the powder compact ones that are favorites, but this one is probably the best out of all of them, because I'm still seeing a little bit of texture here. It just fills in a very smooth way anything that's left over. Sometimes what I'll do is I'll do my full makeup and then I will spray everything, and it will sort of like bring everything back up to, you start seeing pores. It's a little juicier looking. This is the perfect tool for going in and just in those little areas. Like, I wouldn't put this over my whole face. It's not really that kind of powder. This is perfect for just filling in those little places where I don't want any kind of shine at all. And I don't want to see the pores. I don't want any texture, nothing. This just sort of like airbrush tool right over it. So this one is my absolute favorite for that last little finishing touch. It does a fantastic job with that. You could use this for dry skin if you're really just looking for that final thing. It is truly translucent. It's not going to add any color or anything like that. It's really just going to blur. And I've tried some other ones that people have recommended before. This one that Nikki ended up recommending has been far and above the best that I've tried. And if you just had to get one for that like final blurring, this is one of those tools that is a must-have. I take this on trips with me. This comes with me because this I hate being without. So I highly recommend this one. Now, if you're looking for a budget version of the same thing, it's not quite as good, but it's really close. NYX has an HD one. Ooh, that I just got everywhere. It's very, very similar. It has a slight cooling feeling to it, but if the Makeup Forever is just not in your budget, this one has that same just absolutely whisper, like it's just gone. And it's NYX, so it's much more affordable. So yeah, this one does whiten just a little bit, so you definitely want to be a little more careful with it. Like don't overdo it. But this is a good alternative. It does that really good, just blurring finishing. But as you can see, it's just a little whiter. So that might not work for everybody, but if you're using it really sparingly, you don't really notice. So okay, that's a good one too. And finally, you can't talk about specialty powders without mentioning Hourglass. It's like one of the things that they absolutely do. This one is panned. This one's Mood. And for a lot of people, this is just sort of like a little bit of a highlighter, but this has got just enough color that it does show on us, those of us who are very fair, as a little bit of a purpley pink shiny kind of blush. It can, depending on how pale you are, or it can just be your highlighter. It is absolutely beautiful. I mean, obviously I've panned it. This is my second or third one I've had. Really good for that. Now, a drugstore alternative, because a lot of people will get not maybe this one, but they'll get sort of the more clear colored ones that have a little bit of a glow, and they really love that. Well, Physicians Formula version of this is their Butter Glow Pressed Powder, and this is translucent. It's awfully similar, so let's give this a go. And it is a fraction of the price, but it gives you the same sort of just a little bit of a glow effect. I don't know if you can see it, just a little bit, that also works as a really pretty, very subtle, like beautiful glow kind of a finishing powder, so, or highlighter. So I mean, for me, I don't need anything more glowy. I already have a lot of glowy stuff. So even though the Hourglass powders are really popular and what a lot of people would consider to be their favorites, I think this does just as well. It's a fraction of the price, and honestly, I have a lot of glowy stuff. I don't really need that in my powder. So if you were interested in those and you were kind of wondering if those were really worth it, They're nice, but this Physician Formula one works just as well for that same kind of slightly glowy, translucent kind of powder. And if you're looking for something with just a little bit of a really cool toned color to it that adds just a little extra dimension, Mood from Hourglass. I've gone through a lot of these because it is really beautiful, and I can't say, I'm trying to think, I don't have anything right offhand that I can think of that is this color and this finish. Yeah, I think they kind of rule on this particular one. So both of these I think are worth having. Just save the money on this one. Okay, so that's it. That was a lot. But after this whole series, I think you should have a pretty good idea of all the different powders. I'm sure I missed a few because I don't own them all, but hopefully this has given you a better idea of, you know, what kind of powders are out there, which ones are going to work for your skin and skin type, and how to use some of these specialty powders to solve some of those specialty problems that, you know, we all have. Okay, if you have any questions, as always, leave them below. I love that we can share here down below. It is a great resource where we can all chit chat, make suggestions, ask questions, and get the help that we need when we are trying to solve a skin issue usually. So I love that we can all share down below. Okay, well, if you like this kind of content and you haven't subscribed yet, I sure would appreciate it, as it really helps my channel to grow, and I love you guys being here. Okay, I hope you guys got all the information you need and that you are having a great day, and I will see you in the next video.